This month, we're taking a look at the PragerU video, The Inconvenient Truth About the Republican Party, in which a black woman, Professor Carol Swain, reminds us all of the wonderful things that Republicans and the Republican Party have done for blacks and women in the past, the distant past, long ago in a political galaxy far, far away. For me, the most interesting thing about this video is its revealing look into the conservative mind. While progressives are ever trying to move the ball forward in order to make a more perfect union for everyone, conservatives are very much about looking back to a time which was much better in their minds, at least for them. That's what Make America Great Again is all about. In the video, we're reminded of all the wonderful things the Republican Party did for blacks and women. Professor Swain correctly points to the party's founding and its commitment to rid the country of slavery and polygamy. She talks about the Republican contribution to the 13th and 14th Amendments, banning slavery, making former slaves citizens, and guaranteeing the right to vote. Professor Swain talks about how the first black congressmen and senators were Republican, and that the first female congresswoman was Republican too. She reminds us that Republicans passed the law ending polygamy in 1862, that Republicans were instrumental in giving women the right to vote, in ending segregation, in passing the Civil Rights Acts, and securing the right to vote for all people. Then Professor Swain asks the question that we're all asking.
All that's in the past. What have Republicans done for women and blacks lately? The answer you'd hear from professors, journalists, and celebrities is not much. And this time they'd be right. They'd be right because the Republican Party treats blacks and women as it treats everyone, as equals.
So Republicans did wonderful things for blacks and women in the past, and clearly Professor Swain is proud of those things Republicans did. Now, however, Republicans just treat everyone as equals, which assumes that those things Republicans did in the past corrected the inequalities that needed correcting. She's saying that there are no longer inequalities plaguing blacks and women caused by the centuries and millennia, in the case of women, of being treated unequally. Job done. Of course, the fact that Republicans treat everyone equally doesn't mean that blacks and women have achieved equality. Indeed, virtually every metric demonstrates that they are not in fact equal. This video was made long before the public knee lynching of George Floyd or the pandemic, which has disproportionately devastated communities of color, blacks in particular, revealing such inequalities. So perhaps Professor Swain can be partially forgiven. But Professor Swain should absolutely have known of the disparity in wealth between blacks and whites, and the obvious causes thereof rooted entirely in blacks being treated unequally for nearly 400 years. From 246 years of wage theft to Jim Crow, segregation, all the way to redlining, which officially ended just 50 years ago. That disparity in wealth leads to almost all other disparities in nutrition, health, health care, education, employment, wages, crime, incarceration, even life expectancy. Despite these obvious inequalities, Professor Swain admits that Republicans feel absolutely no compulsion to pursue policies which would end such disparities. Republicans think they've set the tilt of the table right again. They've done everything they're going to do for blacks and women, so it's time to either sink or swim, whether or not you still have a 50-pound weight tied around your legs. Treating an objectively unequal group as though they're equal is like a person who's never been in prison meeting Andy Dufresne on the beach in Zihuatanejo and telling him, "Hey, we're both free, right?" It's technically true, but one of them didn't get beaten and gang raped in the shower by the girls or have to crawl through miles of shit to get that freedom. Are Republicans really so dim that they think the policies and laws they supported in the past solved the problem? Those laws and policies might have been a good start for moving forward with some kind of equity, but what about the debt owed? the tremendous debt which has been past due since 1865 at the latest. This PragerU video says in essence, yes, that 246 years of wage theft was an atrocity. And yes, keeping blacks from education, jobs, making it nearly impossible for blacks to get home or business loans so they could buy homes and start businesses, keeping blacks from acquiring wealth to pass on to their children, etc. All of that was absolutely shitty, horrible, awful, evil even. But now that we've ended all that and even given you the right to vote, we're all good, right? If I stole your very expensive car and you caught me, would you be okay with just an apology and a promise not to do it again? Or would you expect me to give you the car back? Would you be okay with me keeping your car so long as I bought you an alarm system so I couldn't steal your new car again? Or if you didn't catch me for a very long time, would you say that it's just been too long and that you don't expect any kind of compensation for the loss? What if this happened over and over and over again for generations? My people stealing your cars for hundreds of years. This inequality and the Republican denial thereof is just another form of white privilege, because we all know that had such a thing been done to whites, there would be never-ending bloody revolution in the streets until they got their due. For fuck's sake, the king raised taxes a bit on the colonists, and all hell broke loose. Destruction of property, tea in the harbor, and the killing of the king's police force, if you will. Do Republicans really think that finally giving blacks, just 55 years ago, the equal and due rights owed them forever means we're all equal now, job done? The fact that Republicans did things in the past to make things better does not mean that people have been made whole. Better after 2.5 centuries of slavery and another 100 years of Jim Crow, segregation, etc., is an almost infinitely low bar. What, for Hitchin's sake, would not be better? Do the good folks at my alma mater, PragerU, go Devils, really not understand that? Having said all that, this is a PragerU video with which I largely agree, at least in spirit. Professor Swain says, in essence, Republicans don't do anything for blacks and women anymore because they treat them as equals, and Republicans don't do anything for anyone anymore. I concur. For PragerFU, I'm me. Thanks for watching.